Welcome to this very special edition of One on One. I'm Howie Rose, and we are joined today by a man who worked tirelessly to give back to the city in the aftermath of the events of September 11th, 2001. We're taping this conversation on September 11th, 2019 with Bobby Valentine. It's always great to see you, Bobby.
Wow, Howie, great to be with you. I thought you were talking about Jay Horowitz when you mentioned someone who worked tirelessly.
That's not...
Because he absolutely did.
He did. But when we get Jay for one of these things, it's not a 20-minute interview. It's a mini-series. You can't encapsulate.
Let's go next. Exactly.
We're going to get that.
Exactly. But thank you. Yeah, there was a lot to be done. And I think everybody who was in the building next door and so many others who were not in uniform and, were dealing with the same stuff that we were dealing with, tried to do as much as you could, and felt at the end of the day that you did nothing, because it really was a large, horrific wound that had to be healed slowly.
And I don't know that you could say is healed to this day or ever will fully heal, but I can't believe it's coincidental that you're here at Citi Field on September 11th, when your feet hit the ground every September 11th. Are you somehow drawn to Citi Field, if not necessarily Flushing?
Absolutely. And, this was one of those real coincidental things, though, because I'm at Sacred Heart University. We have a friend of the athletic department who lives in Florida, who's a great Met fan, who planned with the development department 2 months ago to come up for this week. And the development department got tickets for me to be with them without making the connection on the date.
As far as he knew.
As far as he knew, exactly, more than coincidental.
Yeah, we like to think things happen for a reason, and so the Mets may have been chosen to be the first people outside of those first responders that we continue to honor who made such an impact on this city. What do you focus on the most? When you got back from Pittsburgh and you saw firsthand what the city looked like, what's the first thing you focus on as you recall that awful time? I
wish I was more cognizant of everything that was going on, but it was a blur and still is a blur. But I think I saw through people and saw their heart. I mean, the hearts of everyone, they were broken. They lost their loved one. They were experiencing true fear for the first time in their life. I mean, I had guys in my clubhouse who, stood up there with 97 coming at their head or have it hit back at their face off the bat. But this is the first time they were really dealing with fear, and myself included. And it was weird. It was hard. Life's hard enough. When you have a curveball like that with a spin rate of 711, it's hard to figure it out.
It was all heartfelt, and everybody with the Mets was involved at some level in the immediate aftermath. Shea Stadium was a staging area. As much as it was heartfelt, was it cathartic too? Did you need to be there? Did you need to be doing something?
I wanted to enlist. I remember that exact feeling as after I dropped off my wife at home when we came back from Pittsburgh. I heard about the staging going on in the parking lot. We called, asked about Ralph, her father, who was down with the mayor. They were going to dedicate a Jackie Robinson statue that morning. He walked out of the city over the Brooklyn Bridge, but we found out he was fine. Everybody else in the immediate and surrounding were fine. I got back in the car and started driving down to Shea Stadium. And I had the thought, can I enlist in the U.S. military and make a difference?
So you literally wanted
I literally did the checklist: age, what I could do, my leg. Is it going to be physical, mental? Will I be in an office? What is it that I can do? That's the feeling I remember. And that's, I think, was the driving force. That I knew I wasn't going to get to the front line. I knew that I wasn't going to get the bad guy. I had to take care of the good guys. And I think that's where all the effort went. Yeah.
So in those moments, did you think that baseball would even return in 2001?
I remember one time As a matter of fact, we had that incident in the parking lot at about 2:30 in the morning with Kevin and Sue, and I are sitting out there endlessly trying to unpack and stack and put stuff into the police cars.
You're talking about Kevin McCarthy and Sue Lucci?
Absolutely, Kevin McCarthy
time,
and Sue Lucci, who gave
still here,
every ounce of their strength every day for years to the recovery process. But I remember the motorcycle gang came up about 2:30 in the morning with their lights on, and we were all out there saying, "Oh God, they can take anything they want. We don't have a time for a confrontation." And one of the guys yelled across the fence, "Heard you need a little help over here." 30 or so bikers jumped the little auxiliary fence that we built out there for the staging area and came in and unpacked these ridiculous flashlights that we got from Trump's casino. They needed flashlights for some crazy reason. They were giving out flashlights to guests at the Atlantic City Casino, heard the beck and call, and sent an 18-wheeler. Now we have all these stupid boxes with that the flashlight wrapped in plastic, that you can't get into. Mm-hmm. That plastic, the knife doesn't work on
walls,
it. You can't cut it. Your teeth aren't working. Now what the hell do we do? And it's 2:30 in the morning. They came in, unloaded the truck, unwrapped the flashlights, packed the lights into the flashlight. It was like a kumbaya. It was like sitting in circles of 10 and everyone doing a little job together. We had it done in an hour and a half, and we had 500 flashlights down to ground zero. They got on their bikes and left. It was amazing.
But that was the prevailing feeling,
that was the feeling
around New York at that time. What can I do?
Get together and get this done. Exactly.
And so for the Mets to get involved at the level they did was pretty much organic, was it not? Did you have to recruit any of the players, or did they just do this on their own?
I had a lot of guys that I was in the same uniform with, 24 years or so as a manager, and more with a coach and 10 with a player. That group was a good-hearted group of people. They got it. They wanted to make a difference. We wanted to get back in the race too. There was that thing in that clubhouse too. As a matter of fact, there was even.
Well, those teams didn't like each other a whole lot, the Mets and the Braves. I think it's fair to admit that now, is it not? There was no love lost on either side.
I don't know that I really spoke to Bobby Cox for 6 years until that happened, and I called him. I don't think I ever said hello, Bobby. I'm not sure. I don't ever remember talking to him. And when I said, we need you to come, is that bad? I guess that's bad. But that's the old way. You used to do that the old way. I love him now. We're friends now. But I heard his concern for his family, his troops, his team. When we need to play this up here, I'm not sure we want to come up there. I get that. We need to play this game up here. It's kind of that conversation.
You felt that way, or he felt that way?
He didn't want to come. I knew he didn't want to come. And I listened to my players. They didn't want to. Some of my guys didn't want to play. I didn't blame them one iota. Are you kidding? Let me figure this out. I'm going to play a game of baseball where jets are flying off right next to the airport and leave my family alone in this world that we have no idea about, that we've never experienced before. Are you kidding? I get that they wanted to be in a safe place and take care of those. Instead, they reached out to the bigger cause. And they really did.
Did you hope at some point in whatever it was, a day, 2 days, 3 days before Bud Selig decreed that we're coming back and finishing the season, were you hoping he would cancel it? Were you hoping that you could take whatever time, and for different people it's a different length of time, but whatever was needed to absorb this, to somehow begin to heal, and everybody does that differently too. Could you have conceived in the few days afterwards of playing baseball? When did you come around to thinking it was the right thing to do?
After it, Howie, I could tell you, and I wish I could step back in the moment and relive it for myself, but you're asking the question for you too. But I remember thinking that we were going to pull out hundreds of people out of that rubble. Those 3 days. That was my only thought.
You were going to go down there and literally.
That I wasn't, but I was going to be part of it.
Right.
And these thousands of people who I went down and saw 4 days in a row who had soot. It was an amazing sight, total black, toe to face, getting out of that stuff, stinking. Oh, the stench was ridiculous. And going to find another T-shirt and wash off their face so they could go back and do it again. It was unbelievable, okay? And I remember, and Kevin, I remember sitting under the stars trying to get a couple hours sleep until the next cop's car came over that we had to fill up with stuff, and thinking, it's going to be glorifying. They're going to find the pocket. They're all going to be down in this pocket. We're going to get hundreds. This is going to be miraculous. And instead, as Jay can attest, by that third day, we're going to memorial services. And by the time we come back home, no one has been found. And now it's a different focus. Should we be playing the game? Yeah, I thought that. I thought, come on, this is important. I'm going to spend my time doing this when I could be doing something really important. I had those thoughts, absolutely.
And so when you came to the ballpark, 10 days later, when baseball returned, was it with a certain degree of trepidation that you would be in an arena with over 40,000 people in New York, few scant miles from where the attacks took place? Were you concerned about the number of people that would be there and all of the different, new, and very difficult thoughts to absorb that were going through all of our minds?
Yeah, I almost got arrested. I was here early that day, real early, when the dogs were here sniffing with the entire cleansing process that we were going on. We didn't have the metal check. You remember the Howie? I mean, it was a wide open, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it place? I mean, I knew kids who snuck into this place since 1960 and haven't paid yet. And now they're my age. You know what I mean? It wasn't the most secure place in the world. And so, yeah, I was aggravating the police about, coming the where we park and how ridiculous it was down there to get into the stadium this way or that way or around there, and there's no one there to see them, And anyway, I had major, that now that I thought that I had something to do with that event happening, with the game actually being played, I was scared to death that I was then going to be held even partly responsible for something that was fearful. It was absolutely, I had that thought 100 times in 100 minutes.
The amazing thing about the game that people still reflect on, and certainly it all centers back on Mike Piazza's home run. I broadcast that game, and I don't remember a thing about the game other than Mike's home run. To this date, do you have
kidding?
Seriously, do you have detailed recollection of what went on?
I managed that game.
I know that. I remember the pageantry.
I don't remember one thing about that game.
Well, we're in our 60s now, and we're allowed not to remember.
I can remember pitches of other games, as you say, and you can too. You remember, when he was getting his first AB in Pittsburgh in 1987. I love listening to you, and I love your recall. But that day was a blur. Till we got slapped in the face by the resounding sound of leather off wood and Mike's forearms, And it was a different sound.
You know what? It was a different sound, but it was the most comforting sound that anyone could have experienced in that theater.
Isn't that?
That's what told us we had to be back playing.
It was like the alarm going off, wasn't it? It was a recognizable good feel,
a sound
wasn't it?
that brings joy. And we'd had anything but joy for the last 10 days.
Yes.
And that's when it became clear, at least to me, that we had to play baseball for the rest of the year. If only to see you and Chipper hugging each other before the game. I mean, right there. That was worth the price of admission regardless of the circumstances. I love that.
I think first time ever professional game, hugging before the game.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty cool, actually. It was a real different feeling, And Chipper didn't trip when I tried to trip him when he walked away. Darn it,
You missed your
tried.
shot.
I gave it a shot.
For a former ballroom dancer, that was too much for you to pull off? I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
You're
look,
right.
it was such a sad and yet in the moment on September 21st, exhilarating time because we began, however slightly it was, to walk. Forget about crawling. I mean, we finally got back up onto our feet a little bit, but I can't let you go without spending a few minutes talking about you and baseball and the impact that you've had on this game. And I can't help but think that there's a part of you that maybe feels there's something a little more. Is there anything more that you want to do within this game?
I don't think so.
Really?
No. I mean, I could be a great fan, and I am a great fan of a game. And I have a best friend who has a couple vice presidents with a couple teams that I won't mention. So I get to kind of do a little vicarious thing and pick up the phone once in a while, I guess.
It's advanced fantasy baseball.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things, you know, when you're a senior and someone asks you advice, you then become a senior advisor, huh? Yeah. What the heck? Perfect. So, yeah. So I don't mind doing that. And I had this stuff going on in my life that I'm going to get all the ends and tie them together, but it's still a really good ride for me. I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. You gave so much of yourself to this game, to this city, to this club. And there's one thing, I don't think I've ever asked you this on the air. I might have asked you off, but there are people who get second chances unexpectedly. And I know you're familiar with John Davidson, the former Rangers goaltender, who's now the president of the New York Rangers.
Yes.
He was one of the great goaltending prospects before he ever played a game in the NHL of all time, and was on his way to having the brilliant career that was expected of him. Injuries took him down. And so he became and I mean great broadcaster, and now is a very successful executive. I look at your path and see some similarities there in that you were quite ballyhooed coming out of high school in Connecticut, tremendous prospect.
Yeah.
You were on your way until you got hurt.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if, and I've asked John this, and he answered in the affirmative, so I'm going to ask you too. Did you look at managing as that second chance to get what you were led to believe was going to be yours, a very prominent place and an impact within a game that you loved?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I don't mean that you just go into it to manage.
I don't know how to
say, I got to get this back.
Yeah, I don't know how to say yes, maybe, or no, affirmatively. But I know when Tommy said to me,
Tommy Lasorda.
Oh yeah, Tommy Lasorda is my first manager, my minor league manager, my godfather, the whole nine. We're going to be here together Saturday for a Dodger game. He's coming at 93. Think about it.
God bless him. Yes. He's got to have 1,000 godsons. I think Alex Avila, who catches for the Diamondbacks, they're here tonight. He's one of them.
Everybody wanted him.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you want Tommy? Anyway, I played for him then later after I broke my leg down in the Dominican Republic for him to say, hey, you keep going, man. You know you're going to be as good as, don't worry about a thing any over pizza and beer. He said, I think you should think about managing.
Really?
Yeah. And so, and that, I was 24 then. I played another 5 years on the end of the bench watching other people play. And then I did some coaching, as you well know, with third base coaching. I got all lucky with all that stuff that I did it real young. So all of a sudden, like getting lucky and getting to the major leagues when I was 19, I'm really still lucky. I'm a major league manager when I'm 35. Well, this is just a continuation of the same play. Just the actors get a little different looking, you know what I mean?
So are you fulfilled now?
No. That's what somebody asked me the other day, hey, why don't you write a book? And I said, because I'll write a book when I know the ending.
Some people don't want to know the ending. Are you sure about this?
I want to know the ending of that, work life, that go for it life, when I could then get into that rocking chair and look back at what it was and what I did, kind of that dash that everyone talks about. I want to get there comfortably, but I want to do a lot until I get there.
All right. Well, I promise you this. I'll read the book because you have left a volume's worth of impact on this organization. And as we discussed this on September 11th of 2019, looking back 18 years ago, this city as well. So great to see you again, Bobby.
Thanks, Howie. You're the best.
Thank you. Bobby Valentine, my guest on One on One. I'm Howie Rose. We'll see you next time.